after Christ called you to himself and transformed you in the early 1990s, as you grew in your faith, you had a heart for preaching the gospel and discipling Palestinians of all kinds, but particularly Palestinian Muslims. And you've seen many Palestinian Muslims come to faith in Jesus Christ. You even moved back to Gaza in the mid-2000s, early 2000s, but got driven out by Hamas when they came to power. The first story I want to ask you, and it's super important, is the story of the Hamas terrorist who was being prepared to be a suicide bomber and what Christ did in his life. Will you tell that story as we begin?
This is one of the, it's really a very impacting story for me too, to see the hand of God. I know the hand of God worked in my life to bring me and seen many, but this particular young man was really ready, shaved, you know, the suicide bomber, they cleaned themselves completely, ceremonially and everything. And got the explosive belt on and ready to go the next morning to blow himself up in Israel somewhere. Jesus appears to him that night and says, "What?"
In a dream?
In a dream. He was asleep.
Wow.
Getting sleep, yeah. And they said, the Lord spoke to him and said, "What you are about to do is evil. I am Jesus. Follow me." He wakes up. And he looks, he sees the same person that he saw in the dream standing in that bedroom with them,
and who was the
talking
person?
to him.
Jesus himself?
Jesus himself talking to him. He jumped out of the bed in his underwear and ran out of the street calling, "Jinni, Jinni, demon, demon."
Demons. Wow.
Yeah, and for 2 years trying to find out who this Jesus is.
Wow.
And nobody's willing to.
Not a lot of people who know Jesus in Gaza.
Of course, he didn't do the operation, and Hamas was hunting him down. When we got wind of him, and a friend of mine found out what it is and led him to Christ, explained to him, and got him the communion after he gave his heart to Jesus.
Wow.
And baptized him in the bathtub that same.
Wow. And
become a radical. I mean, I thought I was radical. He was more radical.
Radically saved,
Jesus.
you mean?
Yeah.
Because you both were radical. So this is one of the things that's interesting about this
Radical
story.
for Jesus.
Right, radical for Jesus. So this is interesting to me because again, most of my audience may not know the nuances, but there are two major factions within the Palestinian political world. There's the Fatah movement, which was Yasser Arafat. You were part of the Fatah movement. And then there's Hamas. Fatah, while there were radical Muslims a part of it, it was really a secular nationalist, Palestinian nationalist movement, where Hamas was entirely a religiously driven radical Islamist movement.
Islam, yes.
And so Hamas hates Fatah and Fatah hates Hamas. But you both hated Jews, you both hated Israelis, but Christ saved a Fatah radical, and now you're telling us the story of Christ saving and transforming a Hamas radical. You believe there's hope here, but most people are not hearing the story in mainstream media, for sure, but sometimes not even in Christian media, that God is moving in this region.
This is where I know there is hope for the rest of the Palestinians, the rest of the Israelis that are not Jewish, does not know Jesus yet. Because of people like us who were radically saved by his touch personally. And many Jews are seeing visions and dreams as well. Yeah. And I believe because we are living the end of time. This is the real end of time. What we are seeing today happening is really one of the signs of the end of time, because it's not normal. The destruction that is taking place. First, by the evil work of Hamas, by attacking Israelis in a radical, very evil way, and naturally Israel had to respond and defend themselves.
You think what Israel's doing is
Israel?
Right?
It is right, but in other
words, it had to be done. But yes, too many civilians are dying. It's been very, very messy, very, very painful. I'm not saying that every decision, every moment has been right, but you support Israel's right of self-defense.
Absolutely.